Marco, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me well? Yes. All good. My name is Marco. I work in sales for Okta. Now, I know we promised you that Joshua would show you something. And no one wants to listen to sales, so I'll keep it short and dirty. 8 minutes. Just gives you some context of who we are, what we do, and when you look at the demo, you see where we're coming from. Okta was founded in 2009 by our head of architecture. He came from Salesforce and was VP of engineering there. He saw this problem arise with cloud and identity management and started Okta. And last year we went public. We're about 1,400 employees worldwide, which makes us the largest independent IAM vendor in the world. We have more than 4,000 customers, ranging from Nike to John Deere to, in the Netherlands, SHV Holding or Eneco. And almost 6,000 integrations in our network. Now, why is that important? It means you don't have to develop these integrations. We already have them for you. The more integrations, the more complete your product is as an IAM, because at the end of the day, we're middleware. And 4 years ago, Gartner invented the Magic Quadrant for IDaaS. We've led the quadrant for 3 years in a row. And then Gartner invented a new Magic Quadrant, which was for access management. This was a pretty exciting for us because there were the big boys like Oracle, IBM in the quadrant or so, but still we're on top. And Forrester also sees us as the leader for identity management as a service. Why is that? Because we make customers very quickly successful with our product. Used to be back in the days that IAM projects could take years. Not the case anymore. When you look at some of our customers, normally I talk about NG, but that's an internal use case. Here we're with developers. But for example, Adobe uses Okta for all of their cloud products, Marketing Cloud, Creative Cloud. They rolled it out within 4 months, which is very complicated implementation. The vision of Okta is to enable any organization to use any technology, whether that's if you want to connect with your Salesforce or Box, or your apps want to connect to your customers want to connect to your apps, or suppliers to your apps, or even IoT. That's a struggle that every organization is struggling with, and that's where we can help. The world is innovating very fast, and everyone nowadays who has a relationship with the business, whether that's you as an employee or as a customer, also has a digital experience that goes with this relationship. And it's up to IT to manage this in a safe and nice way. And in this world, we see 3 major shifts. First, it's all about integration. The days of a vendor-centric stack like Microsoft, Oracle, or IBM are past us. It's about best of breed. There's new software vendors starting up every day. It's about how you integrate with those, with all those best of breed products. The second is the security needs to be managed around the user. So 10 years ago, 4 walls, firewalls, all good. Now it's cloud, it's your customers accessing your apps, so you need to secure this user. And the third is, and I'm sure you are all familiar with this, every company is becoming a digital technology company. Because if you don't interact with your customers in a digital way, you're losing to competition. And this is where identity is all in the center of importance. I was bashing Microsoft, Oracle, and IBM before because the days of the vendor-centric stack are behind us. But it made sense back in the days because when you had everything about Microsoft, you also want to use their stuff. Or when you have everything about Oracle, I'm sure Oracle IAM integrates with it well. But in the new world, it's better to keep things neutral and independent. And Okta is that. Okta is an identity cloud. It's the first in its class and invented in 2009. And what makes us special is that we are born and built in the cloud. So that's very different from if you put an Active Directory and put it in the cloud or some other on-premise stuff. That's completely different than you don't get Okta. Secondly, we're independent and neutral, and that makes us want to connect with anything out there. AWS, Azure, I'm not sure if I can mention that here. Azure, Google, for us it doesn't matter. We want to integrate with all of them. And fourth and fifth, at the end of the day we're a security company, so we need to be secure, we cannot be hacked, and we're a single point of failure, so we need to be always on, always available. That's why we invest a lot in security. We have lots of certificates. We can talk about it another time. The Identity Cloud consists of 5 main core services. The first one is single sign-on. We want your employees and your customers to have that one single way of accessing your apps. And that's where the 5,000 integrations are coming from. The second one is your universal directory. This is the cloud directory, which gives you the 360 view of your users. And I'll talk about that a little bit more because some more, not just developers, but also marketing can use that a lot. Third is Lifecycle Management, which is automatically creating the accounts within applications. Fourth, Adaptive MFA, which is a second layer of security based on the context of how the user is logging in. So if you're logging in Beijing and 5 minutes later in Berlin, that's impossible, MFA. Fifth, and this is our latest addition to our product, is API Access Management. We can help you secure your APIs by securing the access to APIs. And this is becoming, I'm sure you're all working with APIs, very important. So this is something that Okta can help you with. Organizations buy us for 2 ways. First, to secure their access to apps for the employees. And second one, and thus to modernize the IT. And second one, for API products and transforming the customer experience. And at the end of the day, we secure your business, so we have no breaches, nothing like that, which is very important because Okta is not for free. Our organizations spend a lot of money on it. When you look at the companies that are using Okta, it's big names like Adobe, NG, Nike, John Deere. And I just want to talk a little bit more about one of those companies, Adobe. I already mentioned they're using us. Adobe went to the cloud in 2013 for everything, internal IT and also their products. So first, their internal IT team, they managed to migrate 200 apps within 4 weeks to Okta, and we replaced Microsoft and Bing. And then they loved it so much, they also used it for their own products. So whenever you're logging into those products, Okta is doing the authentication. I don't want to bash the competition a little bit more, but we replace a lot at our customers. One example that I would like to give is MGM, where we replaced AWS, CA, SailPoint, and RSA, and they saved 1.5 million per year on this. But I think most of you here work on apps that are maybe customer facing, and that's also where we help. So if it's Adobe or maybe a company that all of us know here, Eneco, we secure those users. So Eneco has more than 1 million consumers logging in every month to see the electric bills. And you don't see it, but Okta is securing that. So what is the benefit of Okta to your various departments? Well, there's 4 main stakeholders that we see that love Okta. The first one is marketing. Our universal directory gives the 360 view, and thus you can increase your revenue by cross-selling and upselling to this user. Second one is for developers. We provide SDKs, toolkits, so that you don't have to do all the writing again. It's out there, you don't have to invent the wheel a second time, which increases your speed to market. The third one is IT, because they have that centralized IAM, they lower the cost. And the fourth one, last but not least, is security. They have visibility of what's going on, so that reduces your risk on a breach. Last slide before we go to Joshua. At the end of the day, we make our customers productive and safe. And if you still have some doubts after Joshua's demo, then I invite you to talk with our customers because they're very happy to explain the Okta's journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just saw on the slide only idiots perform live demos. That's what I'm going to do for the next 30 minutes, so that's going to be interesting. Hopefully the HDMI cable will be just fine. Like Marco mentioned, we are a security company. Today I want to talk about 2 topics. First, how we can provide secure access for you developers to the AWS environment. That's just an example of the internal IT use case that might resonate. Then quickly demonstrate as well how we can do provisioning into AWS, for example, because that's always a pain, right? When you onboard to a new company, you need to be provisioned into the AWS environment, and you want to do that in a secure way. So that's something that we can help you with as well. And then the second part of my demonstration will talk about how we integrate in those consumer use cases. So I'm going to guide you through a couple of topics there. And then finally, a demonstration of what we did at Royal Flora Holland. It's a shared customer of ours. They host APIs on AWS, and they wanted to secure that, and they did so with Okta. So that's a nice integration story as well that shows us how we can integrate with those products. So first of all, let's start with that end user experience. Let me navigate to my demo user here. So Okta integrates with Active Directories, with LDAPs, or your users can be stored in our universal directory. And I will talk about that universal directory a bit later. But in here, I can simply enter my credentials. They are not stored in Okta. We communicate with the downstream Active Directory. Active Directory will let me in, and then as an end user, I can also do multi-factor authentication to gain access. So I see the notification on my phone. It pops up, and I simply can approve that request. And that is for employees and users a very convenient way of doing multi-factor authentication, because on the left you can see that now my dashboard is popping up with all those nice applications. So from here I can do single sign-on to Office 365, to Box, to all these cloud applications. That's very convenient because now I don't need to remember any username passwords anymore, only the one that I needed to get into my computer. And if I'm using Active Directory, we can leverage that Kerberos ticket to automatically sign you in to Okta as well. So that's removing the friction of authenticating to all these different platforms. There's a ton of stuff that I can show you here. I gave a big demo of 2 hours just this afternoon. Not going to do that. But I just wanted to highlight that clicking on those chiclets will simply bring me into the application. That is a federation concept. So the identity provider, Okta in this case, and the service provider, in this case Office 365, they trust each other, and Okta tells, hey, it's now Lester Arwood authenticating to Office 365, so please let this user in. So he no longer is required to have a password. Just for the sake of the example, that works the other way around as well. So if I, for example, go to Gmail and try to authenticate here as an end user, when I do that, Gmail knows that there's this trust between the identity provider and this domain, so it navigates me and redirects me back to Okta where I need to authenticate. So this is really giving us the capability to authenticate this user, but also to enforce policy on that user, so that we can really ensure that it's this individual trying to authenticate to the service. Of course, you can also configure additional policies. So if you're trying to access this AWS application, we really want to ensure that it's you behind the keyboard and that you're not stepping aside. So again, we can enforce multi-factor authentication. And just to highlight that neutrality is important, we can integrate with your U2F keys. That's typically something that developers use because it reduces the man-in-the-middle attacks, or Google Authenticator, SMS, voice call, security question, or if you're a legacy guy and you want to use on-prem MFA, that's something that we can support as well. So again, do the push notification, very easy to do. Simply open the request, hit approve, and that will federate you into Amazon Web Services in a secure way. So you select your role, and I'm in, and I can maintain the services there. We also have the command line interface integration with Amazon, but that's something that I'm not going to show today because I don't have that working on my Mac, but that's something that we can secure as well, because there are a lot of people that are doing a lot with the Amazon command line, so we can enforce MFA at that point as well. There's some pretty good documentation on GitHub and on our developer website as well for that. By the way, if there are questions, do not hesitate to ask me and I will try to address those immediately. So this is just a quick example of how we can authenticate users based on Active Directory into Okta and into those downstream applications. If we have a super quick look on how we can deploy that, integration with your Active Directory is done in a very easy way. You simply add the directory or LDAP here, and Okta leverages an on-premise agent that connects your Active Directory or LDAP, if you want to use that for authentication, to Okta here by deploying that agent. So we use a service account to communicate with the domain controller, and on the other hand, the agent is communicating with Okta itself using an outbound long-form request. So no firewall changes are required, only outbound over HTTPS, and that really allows you to quickly connect your Active Directory with Okta. You simply select the OUs and you're basically ready to go. And then again, you can use those groups that you have in Active Directory, maybe not use sales, but the AD developer one, because that's the one that I'm going to use in a few moments. You can hook up here the application that you would like to connect for this specific Active Directory group. Typically, groups represent roles in Active Directory, so you can link that for the developers and maybe other people you want to offer different roles within your AWS environment. So that's fairly easy to do. Amazon itself or any other application can be added very easily. So you simply go to the Okta integration network, as Marco talked about earlier. There's a ton of Amazon stuff going on here. But if I take this one, you can see that we support both the SAML and the provisioning. So once you added the application, it will show up here. And Okta takes you through the configuration. So on the general tab, you can configure a label and also your login URL that you're using. And on the sign-on tab, I can configure what I would like to use for authentication. So preferably that SAML. So we really explain to you in an easy way with screenshots where you need to go. And we also provide you with the exact values that you need to copy and paste into the relevant fields in Amazon. So that makes it super easy to set that up. Provisioning is something that we can do as well. So you configure the integration here. So you need to have the access key and a secret with Amazon. And once that's configured, you simply hit the checkboxes here to create users or update those attributes into Amazon Web Services. Now let's have a look how that is working. So I'm going to my Active Directory here. I'm going to create a new user. And Bo asked me, if you guys have questions, please reach out to Bo later so that we can send you some more information on how we can integrate with Amazon. So I'm going to create Bo today because I'm out of creativity. Bo Amsterdam. And Bo is our net new developer. So I'm going to give the user a password. It doesn't need to change it. It never expires. All good. And let's add this user to the group, Active Directory developers that we saw earlier. So that's here. All good. In Okta, there's nothing we need to do. We can simply go in here. Bo can authenticate. I enter the password. Again, Okta will take those credentials to the downstream Active Directory. Active Directory will say, yeah, sure, those credentials are valid. But Okta is not familiar with Bo yet. So she needs to answer some questions here around password reset. If she wants to do that via Okta, she can give her phone number here. If you guys want a phone number, just ask her. And I don't need to do that now. So I have now been presented with this dashboard, and I can immediately access Amazon Web Services. So one of the things that I need to do is, again, that multi-factor authentication, because I really want to ensure that it's me behind the keyboard. So I'm going to quickly configure this factor. I already have Okta Verify, so that's easy. Focus. All good. Green checkbox, ready to go. So now I hit the send push. Request comes in, and on the left, Okta will continue and will provide me access to Amazon Web Services. The only thing that I need to do is probably select my role, which is correct. So you can see that now Bo has instant access to Amazon in here. So very easy and very convenient. And if she's deactivated in the Active Directory or in a downstream HR system, we will deactivate her account and she no longer has access to AWS. Because that's something that you want to ensure. If people leave your organization, they better not have access to your AWS environment anymore. Does that make sense? Any questions around this internal stuff? Yeah?
Does it work with nested groups?
In Active Directory?
Yeah.
Yes. So we don't have a nested structure in Okta itself, but if you have a structure like Europe, Netherlands, Amsterdam, and you make a user a member of Amsterdam, we will make that user a member of Amsterdam, Netherlands and Europe, I think. Yeah. So that structure will be flattened in Okta.
Yeah, I've been working a lot with Azure Active Directory, and there was a nice thing like with some sort of automatic membership based on some rules. Do you have anything like
Yes,
that?
we do have a ton of stuff. Like I said, I can talk for 2 hours about this, but there's simply too much ground to cover here. And I only have limited time, but yes, that's something that you can absolutely do. Okay? Anything else? Yep.
Does the agent need to run on the Active Directory controller itself, or
No,
can it be a different
no.
machine?
It can. Sometimes people don't have issues with that, but there seem to be some system administrators that don't feel comfortable with that, so it can just be installed on any member server of the domain.
Okay, yeah, the reason why I ask is because if you use the domain service from Amazon, you don't have access to the
No. No, that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
the provisioning of the credentials, you need an access key and a secret key.
Yeah.
You apply a role that can be assumed by Okta as well.
Yeah, that's what we are basically doing. But if you leave your contact details, we can send you some more information around that that Amazon integration. Okay. All good. Then we can move over to the external side of the house, since time is not our friend today. So first, and like Marco already mentioned as well, we are always up, and that's because we run on Amazon. We have deployed Okta in multiple availability zones in the US, but also in Europe. So for our European customers, if they want to ensure that their data will stay in Europe, we can deploy them on our Frankfurt environment with disaster recovery in Ireland. So that is completely transparent and stays out of the US. So that's an important thing to highlight. And another thing, if you guys can all go to developer.okta.com, and we provide you with all the information that you need to build or include authentication into your own product. Because developers want to focus on the cool stuff, new features in applications. And like you're not developing your own ODBC connection anymore, you should not really be developing your own authentication and mechanism as well. So that's something that you can find on developer.okta.com. If you click this red button for sign up, you can spin up a free developer trial and just have a play with it and see how it works for you. Yep.
If you use Okta as a developer to build this application, is it white labeled?
Yes, so that's exactly the thing that I'm going to show. So yes, it can be completely white labeled and your end users will not see it. Or you can leverage some like a widget that we have that will make it easier to deploy it, even on an Okta customized page hosted by Okta. That's also a possibility, but then your options are more or less a bit limited. But you can completely hide it from customers, because we agree that that's very important, especially for consumer identity access management.
I assume that if you use the Okta authentication thing as a developer, you instantly integrate with all those enterprises that use Okta as well.
Yeah, sure, but also every other identity provider that speaks SAML, we can integrate with those as well. And if you want to have social authentication, we include that in the product as well. So all those good things, including that MFA, those are all things that we can do. And I'm about to show you how that works. But just briefly wanted to touch on the developer stuff. So again, we acquired a company called Stormpath a year ago just to improve our developer experience. And one of the things that they build is this. So this is the code actually that you would need to leverage this widget that you can see on the left. And in here, I can real-time play with some features and see how that affects the widget. So I can copy and paste the code in my own environment just to see how things are going. So that's easy. If I don't like English, I can just switch the language to French, and then the whole widget will be in French, because we have support for all these languages in Okta, and that just makes your life easier. Sounds fun for the first time to do some translation, but then if language number 5 or 6 comes up, you have other stuff to do. So going to some examples, I just have a couple here. Informatica is basically our first customer that started using Okta. So if I go here to the Informatica website, and you can do that for yourself as well, if you hit the sign in button, I can authenticate to the Informatica cloud, but that's not what I wanted to do. Here with the Informatica account, you see a login screen popping up, no Okta in here. So I can go in here and try to authenticate as a user. So this is a completely customized, based on the APIs ways to do authentication. So you can see that I'm popping up here. It's a SAML flow, so that's a widget, don't be annoyed by that. Therefore, there's a redirect going on, but you don't see any Okta in here in the authentication screen, so whatsoever. Another interesting example is MGM that Marco mentioned as well. They have this. They had hotels across the globe, mainly in Vegas and the US. And their issue was that every site had their own identity and access management solution. So if you would book a hotel at the Aria and then next week in the MGM Grand, you would have 2 different identities, which was very painful. Now they have streamlined that process. So if I go in here to the Aria, you can see that I'm not authenticated to this website as well. It asks me to sign in. And here's the MGM, same story. So if I authenticate here, I get in. So you can see that my name is here. But now on the Aria, if I simply reload this page, it will automatically sign me in on a completely different domain as well. So it takes a couple of seconds to detect the session, but now on the left side you can see that I'm authenticated. And that really reduces friction across multiple domains. And that's really improving the end user experience and making the customer journey better. Another example where I don't have an account, so you have to believe me, is Etihad. So they switched their whole enrollment process as well with Okta. This is actually the widget, but as you can see, you can completely customize it with CSS as well. Mizars is one of our Dutch customers. So Mizars Signals, again, that's also using the widget. Don't have an account there, but you can enter username password here to get into the system. Again, completely customized and completely branded. In Eco, Marco showed it. If you have an energy bill there, and if you authenticate, this is leveraging Okta for authentication. Finally, just to show you some social authentication, if you go to Flexter, this is also powered by Okta. So again, this is different look and feel, but if I go to Facebook here, I simply need to enter my Facebook credentials. Of course, for my digital me and not myself. So authenticate here, go away, continue as Lester, and it will seamlessly authenticate me. So besides username password, you can also do different mechanisms like social authentication. It's all baked in the product, so that makes it easier for you, and you don't need to worry about how to set that stuff up. Any questions about those examples, or it's all clear? Cool. Yep. Yes, we do. So 99.9 is our availability, but in real time that's higher, actually, or in reality I should say. Because when we architected the service, we obviously selected AWS as a very reliable partner, but we obviously also need to do maintenance. But that 99.9 does not include maintenance, or it does include maintenance, just how you want to say it. We can do maintenance in a way that it doesn't need to, it doesn't affect the uptime of the platform. So even while we do maintenance, users can still use the service to authenticate and do everything they need to do. So that makes us extremely reliable for our customers. Because if we are down, nobody can reserve or book a room at the MGM, and we don't want to be in that situation, right? So for us, it's crucial.
It's 99.9 per month, and if we drop below that, we're allowed to pay expense.
We don't want to pay back, so we'd rather stay up there. And if you go to trust.okta.com, you can see the availability of the platform there in real time. Okay? So if something is going on the service, we will mention that here. So in here, for example, we had an issue going on where some of the CPUs were quite high, but still within boundaries, but we report that transparently. So at the end of the day, nobody was affected, but we still feel that we should report on that. Okay? Anything else? Everybody's good? Cool. Then we go to the Atco Flowers use case. So the story of Royal Flora Hold is, hey, we are going to move our business into AWS. We have a bunch of APIs there, and we want to expose those APIs in a secure way. And we want people to be able to use our portal to get access to Flora auctions, but also gave them the capability to use their own ERP system if they want to integrate there. So that's something that together with the guys from Oblivion we worked on, and this is an example in a demo version of it. So what users want to do is go to their portal and they want to register there. You can go to @GoFlowers and register there for an account just to see the experience, maybe a bit slower. That's the first time. Come back. There we are. So I'm going to register as Joe Flowers. And I'm going to select the language. I'm not German, but it's just for the sake of the demo nicer to do. So hit save account. I didn't do my pray to the demo gods this morning, just that might be. Hopefully this works. So my account has been created, and now I should be sent an activation email. And if I go here, reload this page, and I get a very nice German email from a custom domain, so we don't need to see any Okta domains in here. We can integrate with your own domain that you are using. So it's a welcome message, and it tells me basically to activate my account. So if I would have registered as a Dutch user, I would have obviously gotten a Dutch email. So activating the account, and that will take me to the portal. And in here, this is where I get my first token. And this is an OpenID Connect token. And actually, this demo is very nice in explaining how all this stuff around OpenID Connect and OAuth and Authorization Server, how that actually works. So my OpenID Connect token is the first one, and you can see here that I'm having some OpenID Connect scopes. I'm a subject, I'm Joe Flowers, so that's correct. And since I'm coming from Germany, I had some policies configured that say, hey, if you're coming from Germany, then you're in the region of Europe. So the next step is to reach out to that auctions portal, retrieve from AWS in a Dynamo hosted the database all the available auctions there. And for that action, I do need to have an access token, right? So Okta provided me with an access token, and we have selected to stack all the tokens, but there are different strategies of doing this, right? So you can see that I've requested access to the scope API read to be able to retrieve all the available auctions from the API endpoint for the subject Joe Flowers in the region of Europe. That actually works, so we can see here all the available auctions. Let's see if I can make a bid. I shouldn't be able to, since I'm a self-registered user. I'm not a validated user, and as a consequence, I should not have access to that scope. Let's see what happens if I try to do it. Ooh, big error message. Not nice, but I'm not good at building UIs, but it's perfectly explaining what's going on. If we navigate to the administrative portal, you can see here that there's a user Joe Flowers now registered in our universal directory. And again, that universal directory with all the attributes that you can see here, that can be extended with virtually unlimited attributes. So any attributes that you need, we can store that in Okta. And in here, let's move this user from a trial account to a paid account. And we have some group rules here that say, hey, if this attribute information changes, then you should be in the validated users group, for example. And again, those groups have influence on our API configuration here. So the Okta, you can easily add authorization service. So we have the AWS API gateway defined here. And you can define as many scopes as you want. Simply add them here. Of course, there's the basic OpenID Connect scopes. And on top of that, you can add any custom scope, like I did for API read and API write to make that actual bid. Claims can be included as well. So one of the things that we include in our token is the region. And in the access policies, you can configure what is allowed. So we have this generic portal, obviously, that would meant for us the OIDC token. But we also have policies for trial users and for paying users. So trial users should only be able, if they follow the implicit flow and they're a member of the account trial group, to request access to the API read scope with a certain duration of the access token, while a validated user, as our user John Doe now is, they should also be able to access the API write scope. So switching back real quick, now that I'm a member of that group, I should be able to to make the bid on that auction, since I'm now a paying user, 21 cents. Seems that it's going well. Yeah, perfect. So now the API gateway has accepted my access token and registered that it's now 1 cent more expensive. And you can see actually that scope in here. Now I'm requesting the API write scope for this subject and this region. And again, scopes can be used to define what you can do on an API, and typically claims are used to filter out the information. So if I could go to my account page here and change from country Germany to, let's say, Egypt, save this. And now if I go back to the auctions, you can see that I can only see the African auctions that are going on there. So this is the way how you can combine scopes and claims at Okta. Of course, you can also allow your users to do some self maintenance on their attributes if you would like them to allow that, if you want them to do that. Or regarding GDPR, it's also important that you're able to remove an account as well. So if I delete this user, we will remove the account, but of course in the Okta system log, there will be still a trace of this user. A lot of talking, but I made it in time, so that's good. Any questions based on the super quick demo that I gave? Perfect. Then I would like to thank you very much for your time.